Okay. Hello, world. So our topic was violence prevention, and one of the first things we did was make a distinction between interpersonal violence, which involves individuals or groups in which harm is perpetrated on another person or an intention of inflicting serious harm. And then there's structural violence, which we know is correlated with the geography of interpersonal violence. And that includes things like concentrated poverty. Gandhi said poverty was the worst form of violence. Racism, mass incarceration, redlining, housing, poor education, a variety of things. So we all felt that both have to be approached. They can't be approached separately. We have to work on both of them.
We, in our group, we addressed multiple levels, and I say that to say, drawing on the experiences of people with a range of backgrounds, thinking both about those who are harmed by an act of violence and those who cause the harm. And we came to the conclusion, based on a range of experiences, that it's not difficult to find compassion for the person who is harmed, and that many programs treat that person with, helping them to restore their dignity. What's less easily done and less popular is to support and look for and nourish the dignity of those who have caused harm. And we concluded that you will not you will not help someone cause less harm by humiliating them. That a common thread is that you need to hear the stories of how they were victimized, how they caused harm, give them that acknowledgement, but not excuse the behavior. So a distinction between the person and the behavior. And one of our members mentioned the person first language. So someone who has committed sexual violence instead of a sexual violence offender or a sexual violator.
Right. We know that violence is differentially expressed both in quantity and quality by geography. And that has to again do with the structural violence variable. So we have much higher rates of violence in areas where there's concentrated poverty. And therefore we need to take that into account when we look at broader efforts to prevent violence. And one way to do that is to provide what I call opportunity centers in every neighborhood, particularly those that are marginalized communities where there are high rates of poverty, concentrated poverty, racism, that sort of thing, and violence, because exposure to violence precipitates violence as well, and we have to account for trauma. So one of the fundamental things we need to do is start to take seriously looking at opportunities that are available in those neighborhoods where violence is most prevalent.
Mm-hmm. Two other things I would mention. One was the observation that while it's certainly those who are recipients of harm deserve all care and concern, if you don't also intervene with people who have caused the harm, they'll find somebody else to harm. So it's absolutely critical to work with those who are causing harm and to help them see their own behavior and context. We also spoke briefly about restorative justice and the idea of extending beyond having someone see the consequence only, well, two parts. The consequence of their harm doing on the person whom they harmed, and creative ways that can be expressed. And also that there's creating harm to those in the same community, even if they weren't directly harmed. The fact that a robbery took place around the corner from me or someone was raped diminishes my sense of well-being. And so for those who cause harm, to to see the impact of it on the whole community, and to perhaps want to regain the respect or the support of the community by acknowledging what they've done.
And I would call that accountability with dignity as a way to summarize. And finally, the other point we talked about is in terms of those neighborhood programs and opportunities. Young people have been demonized, particularly black and brown kids have been demonized in this country. It certainly took its height in the late 1980s and early 90s, where they were called super predators, essentially calling them animals. And we had these awful policies that were implemented that exacerbated the mass incarceration that was underway. So we think that young people and children need to be given the opportunity to have a voice, express their opinions. Those living in violent communities are the true experts in violence. We're not. We need to take that expertise seriously. We need to treat their ideas with respect and give them an opportunity in consultation with adults to address the problems that are most pressing to them, that they know in their own lives, that can have an impact on their neighborhoods and their communities. The idea of community harm is reflected in a concept called collective efficacy, which is an important concept that was introduced in criminal justice, and it has to do with promoting cohesion and watchfulness and accountability among neighbors. And that's an important concept to keep in mind in light of and from the framework of the dignity orientation. That's it.